Great. So, Ani?
So, human trafficking
Great.
has been existed from the beginning of human recorded stories, and in terms of the what is the definition itself is the recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, or receipt of a person by such means as threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, or deception for the purpose of exploitation. Now we have the action, the means, and the purpose, and then I will go into what the UN has been doing for the last 2 years, and then just a little bit about what we have been doing at Meaningful World. So the action of trafficking is the recruitment, transport, actual transfer, and harboring, and keeping people in degraded conditions. The means of trafficking, which includes threat of or use of force, deception, coercion, abuse of power or position of vulnerability. And the purpose of trafficking, which is always exploitation, it could be for purposes of sexual slavery, labor, as well as other means of exploitation. Exploitation shall include at a minimum the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery, or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or removal of organs. Okay, now that I'm sharing the desktop, I don't know, the usual arrow down is not working, so let me see if I go this way. Now let's look at some of the recent numbers in the last 20 years. We fortunately have more people reporting now. Although the number is very, very minor in terms of the actual exploitation and trafficking, but we are having more people report as compared to 10, 20 years ago. So this is what we're talking about is an industry of $31 billion, and that's why it has been very difficult to overcome this practice, this atrocity. The numbers are astounding. What is most commonly identified form of human trafficking, if you ask, the Global Report on Trafficking at the United Nations, sexual exploitation was noted as by far the most commonly identified form of human trafficking, because it's almost 80%, followed by forced labor, which is 18%. By and large, the exploitation of women tends to be the most visible in city centers or along highways. An estimated 2.5 million people are in forced labor, including sexual exploitation, at any given time as a result of trafficking. Of these, 1.4 million are in Asia and the Pacific. About 10% are in Latin America and the Caribbean. 9.2% are in the Middle East and Northern Africa. 5.2% are in sub-Saharan countries, and 10.8% are in industrialized countries such as our country, United States of America. 161 countries, according to the United Nations, are reported to be affected by this atrocity, either by being the source, transit, or destination. People are reported to be trafficked from 127 countries to be exploited in 137 countries around the world. The victim is majority are women, but there are also almost 48% are men. The majority of trafficking victims are between 18 and 24 years of age. So this is really difficult because this is the age where the personality is being developed, the profession, one's profession, occupation, and the outlook of their life is being presented. Now, if you can see my desktop, you will see the pockets and the areas. The gray area is the main reported destinations, and the origins are the blue, that the loyal blue color, and the red are both origin and destinations. So when compared to 2006, where there were only 5,808 prosecutions, now in 2010, and that was my updated slide that we can't access now, is for 1,000 more than this 2006. So there is a record of more reporting and more following through and prosecuting and convicting. This means that for every 800 people trafficked, only one person was convicted in 2006. And in 2010, there were every 600 people trafficked, there is one person. So there is a slow but some definite measurable improvements, but not less trafficking, but more reporting, which is really upsetting to read and to witness. Who is most vulnerable? Women and children in particular are targeted by traffickers. And even, let's say, they are not really trafficked by force. They will go into disaster-stricken areas such as Sri Lanka, in India, the tsunami in India, Sri Lanka, and the earthquake in Haiti, in areas that is both human-made or natural disasters, and they go and then start really like exploiting the chaotic environment, disastrous environment, and abducting children and women and girls from the camps, from tent cities, from refugee centers. Other general areas would be poverty. You know, the reasons why this practice and atrocity is continuing is the poverty around the world. Sometimes we have heard in Africa where families have literally sold their girls for $50 because they had no money, or they needed some money for surgery or some unforeseen situation, and they don't know the person who they are selling to, but because they're in dire, desperate situation, then they have done these practices. We have heard many cases as such. So poverty, unemployment, and lack of education and access to resources are driving forces for people to take risks to improve their living conditions. And South Asia, Southeast Asia, and former Soviet Union states are the largest current sources of trafficking business. Conflict zones, as I mentioned earlier, in which combatants create a market for this illegal trade, and the governmental and local law enforcement systems have eroded, make abduction, transportation, and forced service easier for traffickers. And some of them are paid a percentage or really benefit financially from this situation. So there is a panel of experts chaired by Alexia Tavo in May of 2010, who presented the main findings and recommendations from the study organized crime involvement in trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants. So there is a closer look from the UN in terms of both researching the countries that are more vulnerable to this atrocity, and what are the measures to prevent it. And that's the reason about 15 years ago, the UN came up with the Millennium Development Goals, actually 12 years ago. The Millennium Development Goals, there are 3 goals that are specific to women, equality, women's education, maternal health. So there are many there trying to address some of the roots of this illness or corrosion of practice. What are the obstacles? Lack of incorporative universal database, difficulty in collecting reliable data, varying political stances on prostitution between states, lack of international attention, demonization of victims by international press and public. There's a huge problem because of states differ in their prostitution laws and practices. And many of the Middle Eastern and African countries have legalized prostitution. So they think that they're just doing, something legal by taking women and girls across borders for this practice. How are these goals being managed? Well, since 2010, we have few meetings that we have had at the United Nations, and they have now a wonderful assessment toolkit on the criminal justice response to human trafficking. And there was a launch of basic training manual on investigating and prosecuting the smuggling of migrants, as well as the literature review to discuss these issues. There is a big, like a movement they started with a Blue Heart for those states and countries who commit to be vigilant and to prevent trafficking human beings. So because of the time, let me kind of quickly go through some of these. Mexico was one of the first to adapt the Purple Heart, the Blue Heart, I'm sorry, not purple, the Blue Heart concept to, as a state, as a country, to prevent any trafficking. And there is a protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, which came into effect December of 2003, but it has inspired a widespread legislative response. According to the first ever report released by the UN Office for Drug and Crime on the trade in humans, some 80% of human trafficking is accounted for by sexual exploitation, and the rest are for arms, like putting them in both Kenya, Somalia, Congo, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, and other countries to recruit the boys and traffic the boys to fight for their armed in the wars or in civil wars or creating wars. So what we try to do is approach it holistically through mind, body, culture, social, ecological, spiritual way. And this is our model. It's called now the 7-step integrative healing model. As I said, this is the old version. So before we called it biopsychosocial and eco-spiritual, and everybody said, oh, it's too many words, it's too difficult. So we changed it to 7-step integrative healing model. We start with assessment, and then we move on to expression of feelings, which is based on psychodynamic perspective, releasing catharsis. Then the next step is providing empathy and validation, which is based on Harry Stack Sullivan interpersonal theory, where validation, he says, is the best, and acknowledgement of the trauma is the most important step to achieve closure. And then we use the Viktor Frankl's humanistic existential model and help people to find a meaning from their suffering, which according to Viktor Frankl, you can find the meaning in any horrendous experience, and that would be your kind of savior from that negativity, because you'll be focusing on the lessons learned, kind of echoing what the Nietzsche philosopher said, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. And the next one is the information, focusing on adult learner and focusing on how information is power, and empowering women would be best by giving them information. And in this case, basic information regarding the United Nations Human Rights Declaration, ways of healing, ways of protecting themselves, aligning themselves with such organizations that would support their survival in a healthier environment. And the last, the 7th step is the experiential part, where we use chakra and energy balancing clearance and engagement and activation, because if the energy centers don't communicate and the work consistently, cohesively, then we would be fragmented, and we feel isolated and helpless. And we also use other integrative remedies, such as flower remedies, Bach remedies, essences, and we use yoga-like physical movement to clear different energy centers, specifically the root chakra, the heart chakra, and the throat chakra, and the spiritual, the crown, to connect with the deity. And as I said, we use essential oils for each chakra, and depending on which chakra we feel is affected, we use the specific oils, essential oils, or remedies to be able to balance that area. And I'm lucky to be able to have take a course with Viktor Frankl, so I was able to help myself and my community through the suffering, and helping them at the end achieve forgiveness. And because of the time, as I said, I'm going to go through this fast and focus on your questions and comments. Just want to put the last slide on, and I'll talk about that later. Any comments or questions?
Ani, I'm going to take the prerogative of the facilitator here and just ask you for a couple of questions. One is a clarification, and then a question, and then we'll I'll ask our colleagues to share their thoughts. Did you say that I thought I heard you say that 48% of the victims of trafficking are male?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Yes, because 50, the recent one, I can check on the other computer now, it's I think 45 and 55, the ratio. Wow. 55 for women and 45 for men.
Wow. That's very...
Because remember, they use the male for conflict.
Right.
Slavery, for hard slavery work and mining, like in South Africa, they were 35 minors were shot. You know, they use them for difficult laborious work slavery.
So that's sort of counterintuitive to me. So that's very, very helpful. I mean, the other thing is, I was thinking in your integrative model, which is, you know, which covers so many aspects of the person's well-being. One of the questions I have, believe it or not, we're dealing with this very much in California and in Santa Barbara.
Yes.
There's a proposition on our ballot, actually, about human trafficking this fall. And one of the questions, of course, that comes up here is what happens to the people economically after, you know, do they get deported? Do they get any kind of economic training or support or educational training? Do you have any sense of what happens to people that way?
Well, it depends. There are three things involved in that. One is the person's desire if they want to go back to their country of origin. Two, it's about the current, let's say Santa Barbara. What are the laws in Santa Barbara in terms of employment and so on? So it depends on each state, and it's very different. State. When I use state from United Nations, we mean country, but
right.
I mean even the states within United States, they have each different some variation in terms of their laws in terms of making exceptions to these kinds of traffic situations and giving them asylum status,
Yeah.
or giving them I mean, with the asylum, though, a few of the trafficked women said it wasn't attractive for them because once you're in asylum, you can never go back to your own country. And if they have an extended family of 80 people, one of the women I work with, the young ladies, she wants to go back to see her mother. She knows they can't come here.
Right, right. Thank you. I don't want to take up all the time because I'm sure I could, and I don't want to. Let me remind our colleagues that you're all on mute now. So if you'd like to ask a question, please take yourself off mute and ask Dr. Kalayjian a question or make a comment about her presentation. Or I'm sure she'd be happy to tell you about the other work that her organization, Meaningful World, does as well. So we're open now for your comments or questions. Ariba.
Yes, I would like to know how we can get involved and help.
Fariba, could you speak up a little bit? I can't hear you very well.
I would like to know how we can get involved and help.
How you can get involved and help. Ani?
Yes, there are, where do you live? Depending on where you live, where do you live?
I live in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay. So, because Anna was sharing the new initiatives in Santa Barbara, I would say to get involved on the local level in terms of what is your senator, what is your local, state is doing about trafficking, because we are recipients of a lot of, trafficked individuals here in the state. And
Fariba, I can tell you that here in Santa Barbara, and I imagine it's different in other communities, the Rape Crisis Center is the place that has been providing the greatest deal of support to victims of human trafficking.
Okay, thanks.
And maybe, it's something that we can also do. I'm just thinking out loud with you, Anna, to put it perhaps on our website for those who are trafficked to contact us, and we can direct them or guide them. I'm not sure how that helps, but it would be good to, what we do here in New York, we try to have messages in Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese and Philippine, because these are the countries we see people being trafficked to New York. So we give like an announcement kind of, if you know someone, please contact us in their own languages, in their community papers. You know how there's Chinatown and, you know, different pockets of minorities that gather in one area,
Right.
and they have their local paper. I would really recommend to have an article, you know, how this is illegal and it's punishable. If you are or you know of someone, it's a confidential thing. You can, you know, guide them through what is happening in Santa Barbara, how they can get help. Because a lot of them are so terrified and so scared. Their papers are taken away from them, and they have been promised the moon. And also, if they go outside, they tell anything to other people, they are very harsh in telling they're going to kill their parents, their family, and so on, and ridicule them publicly and things like that.
Jeannie, I think you had a question as well, so welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to say this was a really interesting presentation, and I had no idea that males were trafficked at such a high rate either, and so I really appreciate your kind of bringing up our awareness on that, Dr. Kalayjian, and also I guess it's important that we don't forget about the boys that are forced into combat. I was very interested in your treatment model. It looks so comprehensive, and like it's just really takes care of the whole person, and I'm just wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, and about how effective it's been with people. If you could just say a little bit more about that to us.
Sure. Thank you so much. As I said, the boys are less into the sexual industry, more into harsh labor and wars and terrorism. As for the model, yes, it has been extremely effective in, we have used it with multiple religious groups in different countries of Buddhism, let's say. In Sri Lanka, we have used it with Muslim populations in Pakistan, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and so on, and Christian and Jewish population as well. As you mentioned it so well, it's because we address the whole person and not take just one part. We look at the body, mind, the spirit, the culture, the religion, the spirituality, and the health of the body through natural means and not medications. So it has been extremely effective. We have written several chapters on about it, and if you could email me, I can definitely send you that information, or I can try to post it on our, I don't know if you can read it, if it's posted on our wing page.
I will also send I will put in the chat right now, your email address.
Yes.
And that will be helpful as well.
Yes.
Not to cut you off, there's another question which has come from one of our participants on the chat to me, and she asks what the UN does in intervening in these issues, if anything at all. Do they do any investigations at that level? Have they determined effective strategies to break it up or disrupting it before people get to their destinations? Is the UN mostly researching things, or has has it also acted in other ways?
No, that no action is researching, is promoting the MDGs, the 8 goals that they, according to them, a lot of this comes from chaos, conflict, poverty, and ill intention. So what they're working on, empowering women through primary education, mandatory by 2015, which is something they haven't enforced. They're asking the states who signed on the MDGs to enforce it. But from the countries that we have been, I'm sorry to say, they're way off 2015. That's like 2 years left and 2 months. But many countries are short for achieving that. But that's how they try to prevent it, but they don't necessarily have any system that we know of to stop it while it is happening in their tracks, or to yeah, it's basically
or to disrupt it in any way. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They're really looking both at root causes, which they see as the kind of turmoil and inequity in the world, and then
Right.
also trying to sort of shed a light on it through policy rather than through direct action.
Yes, they have been falling short. Even not that they have a department that is supposed to do the following on the trafficking and disrupting it or transforming it or whatever. But even like they have a peacekeeping operations, even those have been, falling short. They are now, the peacekeepers are in Democratic Republic of Congo, but the M23s, they're still going on with their atrocities. So we could see their trucks going, beautiful UN, nice air-conditioned trucks driving up and down, but, they haven't really, it's very complicated. It hasn't been as effective as we would like it to see.
Well, and of course, it's a bit off today's topic, but we all have been aware of the young woman in Pakistan who, of course, was targeted by the Taliban
Yes.
for insisting on an education for herself and other girls in Pakistan. So you're right, there's a long way to go before that Millennium Goal is achieved. And I don't think it will be by 2015, I'm sorry to say.
Yes.
Let me ask you in the minutes that are remaining, and people can either send me questions or raise your hand if you'd like, and I'll call on you. Tell us a little bit about Meaningful World and the work that you're doing through Meaningful World.
Yes, through Meaningful World has been partners of like-minded organizations who are the ultimate goal at Meaningful World is to nurture a generation of conscientious individuals who are geared and guided by peace, by forgiveness, by love, by cooperation and collaboration, and not by competition and war and confiscation. So what we do is we go to countries and communities that are being affected by natural or human-made disasters, and we help them through our model, both for their emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And we know very well that trauma and atrocities have an impact on the next 7 generations, which is the next slide that is on the desktop here. This is a sculpture by Native American here in New York, and you see a human silhouette and another one smaller. There are 7 human silhouettes lined up from large to very small. And the message is, be mindful of your deliberations and your actions, because they're going to impact the next 7 generations. So we believe in that, and we want to be part of the prevention and education so that we don't have to work on 7 generations of traumatized people, but really embrace, try to help people to start adopting this love and forgiveness and the value of peaceful and nonviolent Martin Luther King Jr.'s way of approaching conflicts. And with that, you know, my cousin is kidnapped in Syria, and we're trying to negotiate, and they have been very impossible to do that. So I would really appreciate your prayers, everyone. And I like to end with this beautiful valley of flowers. You see yellow, purple, orange, red, green, white. They're so harmoniously and aesthetically situated. And when you can see this, you want to continue seeing it, and it just opens up your heart with such a peace and love. And the one woman has done this consistently. She has put flower seeds and bulbs in this valley. So it just to show you that we're capable of destruction as well as construction, beauty, giving something for generations, 7, 10 generations to come to enjoy these flowers, as opposed to giving them traumatic experiences to suffer for the rest of their lives and the 7 generations to come.
I always love that. I've seen this picture before when you've used it, Ani, and it always has the same sort of stunning impact. So thank you so much for sharing it today.
Thank you.
Do we have any closing questions or comments? I've shared Ani Kalayjian's email there on the chat function. You have a website, yes? Meaningful World?
Yes, meaningfulworld.com and drkalayjian.com.
Great. Other, Jean?
I just would like to say thank you, and that will hold a positive thought for your cousin.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Oh, a woman in great demand. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question before we close today? Okay, Ani, thank you so much for taking this time, especially at a difficult personal time for you. We wish, as Jeannie has said, the best for your family.
Thank you.
And for you, and we value you as a wing colleague, and thank you very much. And everyone, we hope to see you again at another seminar. Next Wednesday is the last in this particular series. So please join us next Wednesday, and everyone stay well.